Hello people, so we're back. Another video on the prophet of poverty himself, Gary Stevenson, the internet's favourite ex-banker, ex-trader turned saviour of the lumpen proletariat, the working classes. His message, simple message: tax the rich, not the workers. Tax wealth, not work. It's a problem because when you tax wealth, you're effectively taxing the future, which is mildly problematic. If you haven't seen any of his videos, and it will be hard not to because the leftist media has elevated him well beyond his own merits. It's kind of a bad TED talk crossed with a end times prophecy. It's kind of scary stuff, and you know, that's good bait. It's good YouTube bait. You know, this is the man who bet on inequality and got absolutely minted out of it when the economy tanked, and now spends his life, well, certainly his YouTube video, telling you it's going to get worse unless you do exactly what he says, which so far, having watched most of his videos, is just watch his videos. Everything's going down the pan. It's gonna be like, what does he say? It's gonna be like Charles Dickens. It's gonna be like Oliver Twist. So you got to do what I say. Watch my videos. But when you watch his videos, when you strip away his hyperbole and his moral thunder and hand wringing, what you tend to get is like a confused mess of economic half-truths, a lot of emotional manipulation, kind of recycled Marxism-light slogans, all dressed up as some kind of revelation. He's seen the light, you know. So let's have a look into Gary Stevenson, the man who's going to save the world by taxing wealth. Not work, but not actually explaining how he's going to do that, apart from watch more of his videos. He's got this kind of spreadsheet apocalypse thing going on. The government is running out of money. He shows you these spreadsheets where wealth is going, and graphs. I think he makes them himself. I don't know. I can't. Maybe. Who cares? But he shows you these things, and he shows you that wealth is going down each year, like a personal bank account, until it hits zero. And he says that is what is happening to the UK. I mean, it's dramatic stuff. It's simple and completely wrong. The government doesn't run out of money. I mean, he was a trader, but you don't have to be that bright to be a trader. I know loads of traders. They've made millions. They're not the brightest people. Trading's quite easy, but the government doesn't run out of money. It creates money. Every pound in circulation exists because the government and the Bank of England put it there. That's where it comes from. Tax doesn't fund spending, it manages inflation and redistributes resources. I mean, we all know the Mises problem with communism, of which Stevenson most certainly is one of. You know, if there's no free markets, how do you plan long term if you don't know the value of your resources? So tax doesn't fund spending, it manages inflation and it redistributes resources. The government can no more run out of pounds than a referee can run out of goals in a football match. Gary's mistake is pretending that the national economy works like a household. That's his metaphor. He's like, if you overspend, your wealth goes down. No, Gary. If the government spends, that's someone else's income. Every pound of public deficit is a pound of private surplus. Cut government spending too far, and you cut the money supply feeding everyone's wages. You're essentially running the same error as the austerity crowd. You've just flipped it emotionally. You fear that the system is collapsing because the rich don't pay or won't pay enough tax, while the austerity types fear it. They fear it collapsing because we're spending too much. But both the austerity types and the Gary Stevensons of this world, the rich won't or don't want to pay enough tax, they both ignore how money actually circulates through the banking system. They treat the national balance sheet like a household budget, like a family budget. When Gary predicts this economic catastrophe, if we don't tax the rich, tax the wealth, like immediately, do it now, we're all dying. What he's really describing is an accounting identity that he doesn't understand. It's not radical, it's GCSE level economics, performed with like an end of days terror soundtrack. He's got this thing about forgetting about money. He's made videos forget about money. In one of his more spiritual moments, he uploaded a video, forget about money. And that's meant to sound profound. It's like he's transcended the capitalist idea through some kind of Buddhist enlightenment. He says the real problem is money centrism. He says that people focus too much on money and not enough on real resources. And he even he goes back to medieval theology to make his point. And this is a Stevenson quote. People once worshipped graven images of God, and now they worship money. I mean, you know, this is like fat cats. All those fat cats. It's childish. It's emotionally immature. So Gary thinks you shouldn't worship money. It's a fair point, but talking about money like it's the Antichrist and gold is the holy water is just ridiculous. Gary says that economists confuse money for real resources, and that's why the policy fails. But money isn't supposed to be a resource. Money was never meant to be a resource. It's a unit of account, a claim on resources. When you buy something, you're converting credit into labour and materials. And he's accidentally describing how the economy already works. Because with his big revelation, we printed money during COVID, but we didn't create more real resources, so of course we got inflation. Well done, you've discovered inflation. Next week, gravity. The idea that printing money without real output causes inflation is not the insight that Gary thinks it is. It's literally what every central bank on earth already knows and monitors daily, if not hourly. And the irony is sickening. Gary says that money's just a spreadsheet, that it balances out between people in credit and people in debt. And then he demands that the same spreadsheet be used to wage a class war. His real confusion is between money and wealth. Money measures value, it doesn't create it. When he says the rich own all the assets, what he's describing is the consequence of cheap credit and asset inflation. It's not a moral conspiracy. And you can tax that, sure, but you can't moralise it away. And again, this peculiar, sort of bizarre religious framing, money is the new God. Oh, well done. We've forgotten about real people doing real work. I mean, it's a sort of quasi-poetic, until you remember this is a fellow who made millions betting against those real people, the lumpen proletariat that he's now going to try and save, while still betting against them. Don't forget that's still going on. He'll continually tell you he's going to make more millions. In short, this bit can be summarised thus. Gary tells you to forget about money, but builds his own career worshipping it and releasing books and promoting books and monetising his YouTube channel. So you, poor person, forget about money. Forget about it. It's not God. But I'm definitely not going to forget about it. I'm making millions. And then we've got capital flight. If you don't know what capital flight is, when you raise taxes on the rich Foxtrot Oscar, they get out of there. And he's like, the rich aren't magicians, they can't leave, the assets are here, we can tax them. And he compares the rich to an army. He says the only way to protect the middle class from the rich is taxation. The same way that armies protect us from foreign invaders. Fam. So in his world, HMRC becomes the Royal Navy, storming Monaco to retrieve lost yachts. Here's the problem. Gary doesn't understand how wealth works any more than he understands money. The rich don't need to flee physically. They don't actually need to do the off. They don't have to become French or Swiss or Swedish. You can't just shout it into existence. Countries that tried wealth taxes, France, Sweden, Norway, the Netherlands, they all backed off. They all stopped doing it. They collected less tax through capital flight than they previously lost through tax evasion. The only big one that kept it, and in fairness one did, is Switzerland, which has no inheritance tax, no capital gains tax, and is essentially a completely different system. Which is why Switzerland doesn't really count. It's a false equivalent in this context. And good old commie Gary keeps saying China does it. Wait, China does it, don't they? Yeah. China taxes the rich while also banning capital movement, censoring the internet, and jailing dissidents. Is that the sort of model you're after? I mean, I notice you recommend Navarra Media in all your video descriptions. Yeah. I mean, is that the model you're looking for? Or just the part where you get to point at billionaires and, fat cats and all that lark? If you really want to keep the rich paying, you make it worthwhile for them to stay through stability, infrastructure, skilled labour and predictable law. That's not weakness, that's fiscal strategy. Gary's plan to fight inequality like an army isn't a policy. It's a tantrum with tax brackets. It's just, again, immature. At the Church of St. Gary, eventually people ask him the obvious. Okay, Gary, you've outlined this sort of threadbare interpretation of the problem. What do we do about it? And this is where it all collapses. Because he says, we're not going to win soon. This is a long-term battle. I'm just one man trying to build a movement. And we can translate that as this. There's no plan. This is a belief system. I just believe it. I just think it's right. Great. History shows us that belief systems don't tend to function quite as well as having a plan. His solution is to spread the word. Awareness. We all know about awareness. There are companies that are paid millions to spread awareness about, well, you name it. And that's what Gary's thing is. Spread the word, build an ideological army, and wait for history to prove him right. This isn't economics, this is evangelism. And he comes across like that on his videos. Like one of those loony American evangelists. He divides his struggle into two battles, one technical and the other ideological. But since he never offers a single, not one technical policy, not one, the whole movement becomes an ideology about having an ideology. He literally says the power of his message is that it's correct. That's the power of his message. It's correct, it's right. Because every new crisis will prove it. I'm right because time will tell. That's not enough for me. That's dangerous. It's not a strategy, it's self-fulfilling doom. Every bad headline is a victory for him. You know, if it comes up in the paper, stock market down, and people can't afford homes, blah, blah, blah. All of those are a victory for him. That's horrible. What an odd place to position yourself. If the economy improves, they'll just say, yeah, because inequality exists. If things get better, they'll say, yeah, because inequality. So he's covered himself from both sides. If things get worse, he's vindicated. He's created a whole worldview that only works, that only proves itself when you lose. He says this: we won't win if it's just me. We'll win if my channel and yours and his all spread the same message. Right. It's like some kind of YouTube revolution. So we're not talking about taxing the rich anymore. We're not talking about taxing wealth anymore. We're talking about Gary's networking marketing plan of despair. That's where we get to when you ask, what is the actual plan? It's a network of pseudo-ideological marketing, a belief system announcement, a grand belief system announcement. It's not even activism, it's content marketing, the economic version of a self-help cult. Subscribe, share and spread Gary's economic gospel. And what's particularly cringe is when he gets sentimental. And it sort of borders on the edge of being moving. He talks about our young people being poor. He talks about the mental health crisis that does not exist. And he talks about not blaming yourself for the system. And that's fair enough. That's empathy. But then he wraps it in fatalism. You won't get better soon, he says. It's going to get worse. But keep believing. Stick with me on this. That's not hope, that's control. That's telling people they're victims of history, powerless until the movement wins. One day, someday, who knows when. It's like soft despair marketed as awareness. On one of his videos he says, tough times create strong people, but in this universe those strong people never actually fix anything. They just validate his predictions. Gary doesn't want to solve inequality. He wants to talk about it forever. Here's what it comes down to. Gary Stevenson has made millions betting that the world would get worse. And now he's betting his reputation on it staying that way. He says he's fighting for the poor, but his version of activism is telling the poor they'll stay poor until they believe harder. He says this: the system's broken, the rich own everything, the middle class is doomed. But he never mentions innovation, productivity, trade, entrepreneurship, or even policy design, the actual mechanisms that move the wealth around. He wants a moral drama. He promotes a moral drama, not economic reality. It's YouTube algorithm's dream. Simple villains, complex emotions, and no homework required. He's not evil, he's earnest, but he's wrong. He's right that inequality is growing, but he's wrong about why. He blames the existence of rich people. The truth is, the structure of asset ownership, monetary policy, and productivity gaps, things you can't fix by shouting, tax the rich into a fucking ring light. And when he says we just need to make it common sense that if you don't fix inequality, you don't fix anything. And again, he's half right, but half truths. Being half right is dangerous. Because, yeah, inequality matters, without a doubt. But reducing it isn't a moral crusade. It's a technical challenge. And it doesn't start with hashtags. It starts with a coherent fiscal design. Gary's brand works because it feels rebellious. He's a working class lad. His accent changes in every video. His accent gets poorer and poorer. It flatters the powerless with righteousness. But a righteousness without reason is just a performance. His whole empire rests on one single emotional truth. People are angry and people are scared. But instead of calming them, Gary's videos keep them angry and keep them scared. That's the fuel that keeps the Gary Stevenson engine pumping. In a way, though, he is right about one thing. The economy really is about real people doing real work. It's just a shame he stopped being one of them the day he discovered the algorithm on YouTube pays better than Citibank. So where does all this end? What is Gary's future? He says we're in a long war between the rich and everyone else. He says the government's running out of money, the rich are stealing our houses, but salvation will come through ideology. And he's wrong on every count. The truth is much simpler and much harder. Economies don't collapse because rich people exist. They collapse when governments fail to manage resources intelligently, when they let emotions replace competence. And that's exactly the kind of world Gary Stevenson is helping to build, one where outrage is currency and despair is content. Gary's not the voice of a new economics. Gary is not a saviour. He's the priest of permanent decline. So next time Gary tells you he's fighting for the poor, remember this: every prophet needs an apocalypse. And this one's already written into the script.
Yeah, keep fighting, keep talking about it. I know it's a long fight, and sometimes it can be dispiriting, but I promise you this, we will win in the end. If we didn't win yet, it isn't the end. Good luck.
Sweet, 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 please.
This video, like, share and subscribe. Bye bye.